What's up, everybody? Welcome to Real Media Minds. Today, I decided to do my own voice on the reactions on this matter. And yeah, I've been following this story of Jonathan Majors for some time. Not really in depth, but it struck a chord on me, and I decided to just, try and do some reactions on it because it's really amazing on how we got to this point in terms of the actor being accused and also being found guilty of these charges that have been floating around the media. And it's so sad because when it rains it pours. And so I've been going through um, a few channels, and then
And here's
let's
Jonathan
have a look.
Major's name. The second one in New York County. That's where he was charged and, as of now, convicted. It's a jury trial. I went there and got exactly what happened. Okay, this is Jonathan Majors. This is what happened. As you can see, here's everything: defense, defendant, court appearance. There's his attorney. It's all here, right? I went to the source. I don't trust the media. I went to the source to see what happened in this case, what he was charged with, and all that. So you're getting the information directly from the court system. This is not opinion. The next thing I did is I went to the court's website and looked up the model jury instructions. This is what the jury had to find him guilty of the charges they found him guilty of and the charges they found him not guilty of. So here you go. Like one of the charges was aggravated harassment. Here it is. I went here, I looked it up, and so as you can see here, I created a chart, and this chart lays out all the charges that were against Jonathan Majors. First, you see assault in the third degree. And under assault in the third degree, you see actus reus and mens rea. Now, the actus reus is a criminal act. In New York, you have to have a physical injury. So that means you have to cause somebody to be injured physically in some way for you to have an assault in the third degree. And the mens rea, the mental state, is intentional. You had to intentionally have caused that physical injury. So that's where you have assault in the third degree. And right under it, you have harassment in the second degree, where the actus reus is you have to annoy someone and have the physical injury, where the mens rea is again intentional. So you had to intentionally both annoy and cause a physical injury. Now, the jury didn't buy that. The jury seems to say that Jonathan Majors didn't intentionally cause this woman's physical injuries. So that's why they found him not guilty on those two counts. Now, let's look at the other side of the chart where Jonathan Majors was found guilty. Now, as you can see, it's still assault in the third degree, but the mental state has changed. It's not intentional, it's reckless. So in this case, he still had to cause a physical injury, but now he had to do it in a reckless manner. Now, what does reckless mean? Well, reckless essentially means is that he created a situation in which someone could be injured and then that person was injured. A quick example of that is, let's say you're at the top of a building and there are people walking on the sidewalk below and you throw a rock off that building. Now that rock falls and hits someone, injuring them. Well, that would be assault. Now, you may not have intended to hit any individual person. You may not have even intended to hit anybody. But the fact that you created a situation where it was likely someone could get injured and they actually did makes it reckless.
And it's funny because Nate, the lawyer, has to say this because, I've been going through, reading the stories and going through the different media channels, your CNNs, your ABCs, CNBCs, and, even the channels in my own country, such as News 24. And, the main sort of title that you pick up, it's always, leaning towards, the same type of narrative because, I mean, the way it's portrayed as, Jonathan Majors as, the person who really, assaulted, this lady. What is her name? Yeah, his ex-girlfriend. Forgot the name. But I mean, for example, BBC, Marvel actor guilty of assaulting ex-girlfriend. The Guardian. That's I think my country's newspaper. Marvel and Disney drops actor Jonathan Majors hours after guilty assault verdict, and it goes on and on. And there's another one, Hollywood Reporter, also saying Marvel drops Jonathan Majors after assault verdict, and in the actual fact, he didn't really assault his ex-girlfriend on purpose. this was, you from watching the videos, this was based on him trying to get away from her because she was putting him in a situation whereby she could continue and escalate the whole situation where it could end up being looked at in a certain manner, and it might end up getting to a point where he literally has to defend himself physically, because I don't know if she was intoxicated at that point, but she looked like a person who was not sane. So him trying to put her back in the vehicle, while the ride that they were on was parked on the Manhattan street. It was him trying to sort of you know get her to jump back to reality, sort of control the situation, and sort of, I don't know if he spoke to her, because I mean the camera angle was not really close enough to to see what was going on. But I mean, in that situation where you are trying to sort of distance yourself from the other person who's putting you in danger, or the assaulter, you're always, especially female, you're always trying to sort of make the situation calm so that they get back to their senses. So that's what he was trying to do when he was putting her back in the vehicle. Okay, looking at the action that it was done on it, some people might take it as very aggressive, but I mean, as a guy who has acted in a lot of these very physical roles, he's probably have amassed a lot of physical strength. So it's the act of picking her up and putting her in the vehicle that people might get a bit iffy about. But really, I mean, if you are picking someone who probably is a certain amount of weight, you won't pick them up like they're like a feather. And so, the actual verdicts that he got, which was the assault of the third degree, was based on reckless injury to the ex-girlfriend, which means it wasn't intended. um I'm not really familiar with the American law, but it says here that assault of the third degree, actus reus, physical injury, mens rea, reckless. So it means he did not intend to assault her. So then, therefore, he can't be labeled as a person who is an assaulter, if there's such a word. Because if you're saying someone assaulted me, yeah, that's a big word. That's a big word, because it comes with the weight of you know, inflicting harm or intending to inflict harm purposely and consciously. But this is not the case. It should have a lot of these news media should have framed this in a better way, whereby it shows that there was a an encounter between the two, in the relationship, but it wasn't based on intent. It was more based on sort of defense. And looking at the video again from TMZ, it looked like it was sort of a defense mechanism to like flee the situation. So
Were against Jonathan Majors. First, you see assault in the third degree. And under assault in the third degree, you see actus reus and mens rea.
I wonder what is actus rea and mens rea. Let me just have a look quickly. What is actus rea? Actus rea and mens. Yeah, we are learning here. We're learning here. Because we don't have, or maybe we do, I don't know. Let's see. Actus rea. Actus rea. This term refers to the physical act or conduct that constitute a criminal offense. So in this case, the act is physical injury. It's the actual action. Yes, I just said that. Or failure to act when there's a legal duty to act that forms the basis of a crime. Actus rea can include a wide range of actions, from a physical act of violence to omissions or failures to act that results in criminal consequence. Okay, mens rea. This term refers to the mental state or intent of the person. So in this case, this person was reckless. And these are the things that I think that should be included in the news articles, to frame correctly what Jonathan Majors, the state of Jonathan Majors' mindset at that time. Yes, he was reckless, but he didn't intend to do any harm to this female, his ex. Let me just get her name. That's her name, Grace Jabari. Okay, cool. Let's see.
Intentionally, you had to intentionally have caused that physical injury. So that's where you have assault in the third degree. And right under it, you have harassment in the second degree, where the actus reus is you have to annoy someone and have the physical injury, where the mens rea is again intentional. So you had to intentionally both annoy and cause a physical injury. Now, the jury didn't buy that. The jury seems to say that Jonathan Majors didn't intentionally cause this woman's physical injuries. So that's why they found him not guilty on those two counts. Now, let's look at the other side of the chart where Jonathan Majors was found guilty. Now, as you can see, it's still assault in the third degree, but the mental state has changed. It's not intentional, it's reckless. So in this case, he still had to cause a physical injury, but now he had to do it in a reckless manner. Now, what does reckless mean? Well, reckless essentially means is that he created a situation.
I'd like to sort of rebuttal that and say, I don't think Jonathan Majors created the situation. He was minding his own business. Grace Jabari saw the message in his phone. Remember, phone is a personal item which whatever that happens in your phone. She saw a message from Cleopatra and then she went ballistic, she went bonkers. So I would like to just, for me, correct that and say Grace Jabari created the situation. And in this entire time, Jonathan Majors was trying to get away.
In which someone could be injured and then that person was injured. A quick example of that is, let's say you're at the top of a building and there are people walking on the sidewalk below and you throw a rock off that building. Now that rock falls and hits someone, injuring them. Well, that would be assault. Now, you may not have intended to hit any individual person. You may not have even intended to hit anybody. But the fact that...
I think the law also has some loopholes. Because, being on top of a building, in this example, and throwing a rock from a building, what do you think is going to happen? Someone will get injured. So, I don't know, is there such a mens rea where it's semi-intentional? Because, throwing something at such a height to, the public streets or whatever the situation might be, but wherever there's, a crowd of people, someone will get hurt. You're not intentionally targeting a certain individual, but there will be physical bodily harm that will happen from your act. So again, I think it's there's a thin line here, because in Jabari's and Jonathan's situation, Jabari didn't leave his phone open intentionally. He didn't leave his phone unattended intentionally. It was with him. The message popped up because in any phone, when you have a notification, it flickers, blinks on, you see a notification goes up the screen, and then probably depending on your settings, you might see a little bit of the message, just a snippet, giving you a brief snippet of the message. So again,
you created a situation where it was likely someone could get injured, and they actually did, makes it reckless. So that is what they're saying. They're saying that he didn't intend to do it, but he recklessly caused her injuries. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner of the chart, you can see harassment in the second degree, and I put there not crime. And that's because harassment in the second degree is not a crime. It's essentially what's known as a violation. So it's actually not a criminal act. And what harassment is in New York is if you harass or annoy someone intentionally without causing them physical injury, then you're guilty of the violation of harassment. So this is actually not a criminal charge, and being found guilty of harassment in the second degree, he wouldn't even have a criminal record in New York. It's essentially the same as a parking ticket or a parking violation. It's nothing. So this is how the jury came out. He was not guilty on any of the intentional charges, but he was guilty on both the reckless charge of assault in the third degree and annoying her in a non-criminal manner. intentionally annoying her in a non-criminal manner. So now, in 5 minutes, I've just explained to you exactly what he was charged with, how they work, what's the act, it's a mens rea, what the jury found, and so you know it all, right? And you even saw where I got the information from. So now let's see how accurate NBC News is in covering the story. And I think this is fascinating. Let's watch.
I'll also watch this
together.
And hello, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips.
And I'm Terry Miranda. We've got some breaking news. The jury in the Jonathan Majors domestic violence trial has found him guilty of 1 count of assault and 1 count of harassment, but acquitted him of another count of assaulting his former girlfriend. This comes after jurors spent 4 or 5 hours deliberating over portions of several days. And this is a case that has gotten a lot of attention. Jonathan Majors, a major rising star, and he met a crisis in this, and the jury has now returned with its verdict.
And there was a lot of talk about this trial impacting his future in the movie business. Rising star within the Marvel movies. Our legal contributor, Brian Buckmeyer, has been following this from the very beginning.
Now, I'm going to pause it right here because Marvel has just fired him from like everything just now. Like they literally just fired him from everything. Check this out. So make no bones about it. Jonathan Majors' career is over. Marvel and Disney has dropped Jonathan Majors after he was convicted of assaulting his former girlfriend. So this is the Associated Press. Right after the verdict dropped, they said they're done with him. They made it very, very clear it's over for Jonathan Majors and Disney. So, his role in the MCU, all that stuff is just done. He is finished at Marvel. So let's get back to the newscast.
Imagine all the hard work, all the years, the sacrifice, the late nights, the sleepless nights, the rehearsals, the knocking on different doors, the begging, the growth, the sacrifice. Sheesh, man, such a shame. And the thing is, like, it's such a very disheartening thing because this guy was not for the streets. He was not all over the place. He had one woman, he had a mission. He, wanted someone to be his companion in this journey that he is taking. And I saw another video, a snippet when, I think they'll play it here because I did watch this as well. And he was, sort of laying it down as to, what's the plan, what's the mission, and what's the goal, and trying to explain to his partner that is supposed to sort of understand and sort of maybe push back if she feels otherwise or different about the plan and what he's saying.
Beginning as well. So I guess let's first of all talk about the charges here. Brian, your first reaction.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of scratching my head just because I'm looking at the different charges, and let me break it down and explain. There are 2 different assaults here. One is intentional assault and one is reckless assault. Based on the number order that they're telling us, my guess, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, is they're acquitting him of intentional assault, but finding him guilty of reckless assault, meaning that he just did something he should have known better, and it caused the injury of Grace Jabari. Then he's found not guilty of aggravated assault, which is to alarm, annoy, harass, or threaten someone and subject them to physical violence.
Well, it says physical injury, like you have to actually cause a physical injury for aggravated assault. So he's kind of missed that here. And just so you don't think that I'm like BSing you, let me show it to you in the law. So you guys know exactly where I got this from. I got this from the New York State's website, and these are the jury instructions that the jury has to use to find a person guilty of aggravated harassment. So let's just read it real quick. This is under our law. A person is guilty of aggravated harassment in the second degree when, with the intent to harass, annoy, threaten, or alarm another person, he or she strikes, shoves, kicks, or otherwise subjects another person to physical contact. So in other words, I've annoyed you, then I hit you in some way, thereby causing physical injury to such person or to a family or household member of such person. So if you do it to a family, this also says if you do it to a family member. But essentially what this is saying is that I'm harassing you and then I also cause you a physical injury. So think about this. If it's just causing you a physical injury intentionally, that's assault. If I'm harassing you and through that harassment, I cause you a physical injury, that's aggravated harassment. So that's the difference. And I don't think this commentator understands that difference. But yes, here the requirement is that you're harassing a person and intentionally causing a physical injury.
did something he should have known better, and it caused the injury of Grace Jabari. Then he's found not guilty of aggravated assault, which is to alarm, annoy, harass, or threaten someone and subject them to physical violence. But he's not guilty of that, but he is guilty of alarming and annoying Grace Jabari. To me, this sounds like we call it a King Solomon decision. They literally just split the baby and said half and half. But some of the convictions and some of the acquittals don't really make sense when you put them all together.
Well, Brian, let me try to make a little.
No, but so again, I don't think he understands it, because they obviously do make sense. They're saying he didn't intentionally harm her. He didn't intentionally cause her physical injury. So anything that requires him to intentionally cause her physical injury, he's not guilty of. As you can see here, both the not guilty verdicts came down to, did he intentionally cause a physical injury? And if you think about it, let's say for assault in the third degree, they're saying he didn't intentionally cause her the physical injury. So he can't also commit aggravated harassment, because that requires him to intentionally cause a physical injury. So that is consistent. But when it comes to the other side, they can say, well, for harassment in the second degree, he intentionally annoyed her. Okay, boom, you got that. Right? He didn't cause a fit, so it's not aggravated harassment, but it's plain harassment. He intentionally annoyed her. And then for the assault in the third degree, they say, well, he recklessly caused those injuries. He didn't intentionally do it. So there's no issue with the verdict. Now, I do agree with he said that this is a King Solomon verdict, right? In other words, it's saying, all right, we'll split the baby. We don't think he intentionally did this, but he may have recklessly did this. That's where I think this comes down to.
Well, Brian, let me try to make a little sense. I wonder, I don't know the exact fact pattern since I wasn't in the courtroom, but couldn't you say that in the fury of what is a domestic dispute, he was reckless in his handling, in his physical handling of Jabari, and that was the reckless assault, and the harassment is he lost his temper rather than consciously went after her. Does that make sense?
Now, that does make sense. He's saying exactly what the jury said. He didn't intentionally harm her physically. So that loses you the aggravated harassment, and that loses you the assault, intentional assault, because he didn't intentionally harm her. He didn't intentionally hurt her. That's exactly what the jury has come to.
Make sense?
No, because it would make sense for the reckless and then the aggravated harassment, because the aggravated harassment is harassing someone through physical violence. So why find him guilty of a...
No, because the aggravated harassment, as we saw with the chart earlier, and I can bring the chart back up, but as we saw with the chart, for aggravated harassment, it has to be intentional. For the recklessness that they found him guilty of, it doesn't have to be intentional. Only thing it has to be is reckless. So he's conflating the two. He's making it seem like aggravated harassment, it has to be reckless, which is not accurate. It has to actually be intentional.
Of assaulting recklessly, but not guilty of harassing someone through physical force. That's the part that I'm thinking someone just kind of said, you know what, We'll find him guilty for two, but not guilty for these two. But it could work. Someone's got to talk to the jury, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about the evidence, because there was clearly clashing narrative from both sides. We had video, audio, text, photos. Do we have that video? Okay, this is some of the photos that we had here of the bruises and the cuts. This is the video that I'm talking about. I mean, this was probably one of the most powerful pieces of the evidence that they played in court.
Now, I think this video is important because I think they're saying him doing that, pushing back into the car, that was the reckless act. And if she was injured when he was doing that, then that's the reckless act. Or because when you hear, I think he was claiming that she took her phone, that she took his phone. But that act of maybe trying to get the phone, that act of pushing her back in, she may have been injured there. So they're saying, okay, by her being injured when he was doing that, that's the reckless assault, right? And that also would be civil harassment. That's the non-criminal harassment, the one where he's doing that and he's not doing it and she's not intentionally trying to harm her. He's just doing that. So that's your non-criminal harassment. But also that is your criminal reckless assault, because they're saying someone else, if you do that to someone else and you keep pushing them back in the car like that, that can cause him to be injured. He should have recognized that, and that's what they found him guilty of. Again, it seems like this is what the jury has found.
Court, Brian.
Absolutely. And I was in court watching some of this video being played to the jury, and I think it was difficult for both the prosecution and the defense to really articulate this video.
You see, I'm thinking that push and this interaction is where the jury says, okay, this is him recklessly injuring her, but not intentionally. He didn't mean to hurt her here, even though he was just trying to get away.
This video in a way that really moved the jury, and I think ultimately the jury kind of took this case into their own hands. We saw that from the jury notes saying we want all of the evidence, pretty much video, testimony.
Yeah, this is the video that I was also talking about that was floating around. So imagine that they're saying that. Man. So what was he supposed to do then? America.
There's a state of mind, obviously, that the prosecution would have to prove, right? And so here they are. She has seen the spark that triggered this fight, was she saw what she thought was a message from another woman on his phone. So she was trying to grab the phone. He's trying to grab it back. They're probably at the peak of emotions and anger and mutual conflict at that point. And would the jury have factored that in? In other words, we've all been in fights with people we love, and so it's not the same as a more conscious.
As Brian smiles, he's like,
you know, I think here you could, again, if I was presenting the case, I would have used also like a defensive property argument. In other words, if somebody takes your property, you can take it back from them, right? You can use physical. If they take it with physical force, you can use physical force to take it back because it's still your property. So the law does allow that. So if the argument is she took his phone and he was trying to get his phone back, that would essentially give him justification for assaulting her, right? I'm trying to get my property back. And in that way, I think that would have been a better argument. I'm not sure if his lawyers made that argument or not, but that would have been an argument I made. Well, yes, even if he assaulted her, he did so to retain his property. He did so to get away. And those excuses, then the jury can hang his hat on and say, okay, yeah, if she took his property, the law allows you to use physical force to get your property back. But I'm not sure if his lawyers made that argument. I didn't watch the trial.
Yeah, this is the difficult part for me, and this is where I was getting in trouble at home when I tried to break this down to my wife.
Like, does the law really exist? Or a law is just, a way of just, I don't know. At this stage, really, what is the law? What's the purpose of the law? Clear as daylight, we can exactly see what is happening. But it doesn't seem that the justice system rewards that. It doesn't. Instead, it feels like they're trying to subdue Jonathan Majors, or maybe the image of Jonathan Majors, a guy who's larger than life, a guy who's very confident, but they're trying to show him that it does not matter how big you are, we can get you. Does the state really, or rather not the state, but the justice system, does it really want to sort of uphold justice? I mean, in his case, because I saw another video, they were saying that this is not normal for a case like this, which is a minor case, for a first-time offender as well, and a domestic case as well, to run for 11 days. Just to imagine what the monetary loss that this person has encountered. Yeah, man, that was my reaction, and hopefully I'll be doing more of these type of reactions going forward. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I can change to improve to make the channel grow. This is video number 3. Hopefully my channel gets bigger. Thanks.